Welcome everyone. This talk is going to be about jQuery mobile, and it's suited for all levels. There's not going to be much code, so if you're not a JavaScript guru, that is going to be fine for you. So, but who here has experience with JavaScript? Great. All right, and who owns an Android? Okay, iPhone? Some people raised their hands twice. Windows Phone? Not even one, okay. Usually I get at least one, and a BlackBerry. All right. Cool. So the purpose of this presentation is to help you pick between a mobile site and a mobile app. So I will explain why it's appropriate in many cases to create a mobile site. And I will show you how easy it is to create one using jQuery mobile. There's a space in front if you want. There's a space right over there. Yeah. And so about myself, I generate return on investment through advice. So whether it's on a technical level or more on a management level, I sometimes write code. You can pick up a business card at the end. I also have some unit test advice on little cartons. And you can ask questions anytime, so feel free to interrupt. I will answer any questions. Last thing, I have an article coming up in PHP Architect magazine in North America, so you can get 20% off on a new subscription with this special code. So you can write it down, or I can give it to you afterwards if you're interested. So why would you choose a mobile site? Because it is quick, it is inexpensive. When you create a website, when you create a mobile application, you have to consider all the current devices, but also any future devices and maintenance for those applications. With a website, you don't really need to consider all of that. It can be much easier. The website is a point of entry for first-time users. So when they search for you online, they will first come into a website, and you may not want to turn them off by asking them to download a mobile application instead. Because when you download, it takes time to download, it takes time to install. Once you install it, it uses up valuable icon space because you already have plenty of icons. And after you finish using it, if it's just for one time, you will then uninstall it. So it's a lot of manipulations for just checking up some content quickly. So with a mobile site, there's no download, just load the website, which is much quicker. And others may link to your website. So for example, if you have some content, people share it on Twitter, people click the link, they want to be able to get to your website. So this is an entry point. And you don't necessarily need speed and all the native features, although browsers do support some native features like cameras and GPS already supported. Soon we might have gyroscope, so you may even create HTML5 games where you can tilt your phone. I don't know if it's supported on some more recent devices. But the question, once you decide to create a website, the question is it going to work on this device? Do you think your website can work on that? There are many challenges. For example, well, development takes time. Like with everything, the UI, when you create when you take a basic website, the UI is not suited for mobile because you have small links that you need to click. Sometimes they're really stacked close together, so you really need Hawkeye's aim in order to click on that link, or you have to pinch zoom and then select the appropriate link. You can have text overflow, so even if you turn something in portrait mode, you can still have some text overflow, so you need to scroll horizontally. That's not a challenge. And when you scroll, you can sometimes result in a click. And that happened to me on a website recently where I was scrolling vertically. The website was fitting perfectly within my mobile device. But I was scrolling, and then there was an interactive map, which took the entire screen. And then I was stuck in that area because I was just dragging the map around. So you have to consider all of that when you design for the mobile. And there's so many variables. There's different devices, there's different browsers, there's many capabilities. Some of the capabilities is obviously the viewport size. You have very limited screen real estate on your screen. You have different pointing methods. The most common that we know is the touch screen, but there's also joysticks. There's a stylus. There is a click wheel, like on the older Blackberries. You may or may not have image support. Most devices now do have, but users may be able to turn them off in order to save some bandwidth, or just in order to load their websites much more faster if they are using 3G in a remote area, for example. There's also a number of colors. We've seen that on the Kindle, you basically just have two colors, black and white. So you have to consider that. There is a possibility of HTTPS support, UTF-8. Well, here in Germany, you know that better because you use more than the standard ASCII characters like they do in the US. And % width, so when you try to resize your website to fit the entire screen, some of them only can use pixel-based widths, so you cannot automatically fit your website design. There's many more. And you may not be aware of all the capabilities, and that's why designing websites for the mobile back in the days was so difficult. So the solution is to use jQuery Mobile. It's a JavaScript framework. So the framework, if you're unfamiliar, it's just a tool that makes it easier to create complex functionality. And with jQuery Mobile, you only have one code base, so you don't have to replicate your website for different devices. You only create one code base, and it's just going to work on all devices. Your website is going to look the same everywhere. You can still customize through CSS to say that for this device, I want to have that look and feel, so that you can sort of adapt it to look more native for that device. The UI by itself is adapted to the mobile. So you have big clickable areas. It also has many tricks to help you save screen real estate. And it works on many devices. The devices on which it can work is Android, BlackBerry, Windows Phone, iPhone, iPad, all the different tablets, Kindle, and many more. They keep adding support all the time. And the way it does that is through a process called progressive enhancement. So it's going to look great on the latest device and browser. It's going to look its full potential, but it will still be presentable on older ones. So basically, it starts with a base, and then it enhances with each new available feature or capability that it finds on the device. So if the device supports images, it's going to add images, and so forth. If it has Ajax, then it's going to add nice, slick transitions. If you're wondering about the features that it supports, it has many mobile-specific events, something that otherwise you will have to write by hand. You can have tap, which is a quick tap, is basically like a click. And you can have a longer tap, which is about 1 second of pressing something. And that will be a hold tap. You can swipe left or right. Vertical swiping is really just scrolling, but you can swipe sideways in order to flip pages in an article, for example. Or if you have multiple columns, say the schedule, you will have different days, so you can swipe to the left or to the right to change columns. It responds to orientation changes and also has all the usual events like click, drag, and drop. So you can also use that. And it has transitions, it has forms and caching, history control, and you will see that a little later. All right, so that's enough for the theory. Let's build something. Let's look at some code. The first thing you need to do is include some JavaScript files, JavaScript and CSS, sorry. You need 3 files. The first is the basic jQuery framework. Then you need the second framework, which is the jQuery mobile framework. And then you add the CSS, which is the jQuery mobile CSS. Then there's some images that come with it. And then if you want to create a button, all you do is you use an anchor tag with a data role of button, and you just add a text inside. Data role is something that's part of the HTML5 specification, by the way. It has no meaning to the browser. Everything that's prefixed with DataDash is something that you use in order to enhance functionality using frameworks such as this one, or you can just use it internally. It's like metadata, basically, for your HTML. And this will place a visual element. So it will convert links such as these into nice buttons. And you can customize the look and feel later. This is the default one that comes with jQuery Mobile. And it also has different swatches, so different color combinations that you can use. So you can quickly get started. You can also use lists. Lists are simple, UL. Can everybody see the code in the back? It's good. All right, so you use a UL, and instead of button, you call it a list view. And for every item, it will create a row. Actually, I will show you what it looks like. It will create a row with, well, if you make it clickable using a link, it will create a little arrow, and you can click on the entire block, not just the arrow. So it's very easy on the mobile. You just click on the entire line. That would be lying to tell you that you just use data role and it works like magic. You have to encapsulate it in a shell. And I will explain why you need to use such shells later, because it adds more possibilities later on. So after you put the JavaScript files and CSS in the head, in the body, you start with a container, a div container, data role page. And it will tell you that everything that goes inside this container is part of a single page. And you can have multiple pages in the same document. I will show you later. By the way, complete examples will be on GitHub. So later I will give you a link, and you can download that and mess with it. So inside your page, you create another container called content. And the reason, this is the central piece. And the reason why we nest these is because within the page you can have also a header and a footer, and they have a special look to them. So you can add like back button in the header. You can add some other information in the footer. You can make sure, you can also make them fixed so that when you scroll, the footer may remain visible in all times. And that's when you put the button. So it's just two containers, and then you go ahead and write your content. The button by itself is not going to do anything until you link to another page. And I will show you a simple example where you can create two pages within the same document. Actually, you can create as many as you want. So within the same document, you create another data role page. You give it a unique ID. By default, jQuery will display only the first one. It will make it visible. And the other ones will be hidden until such time as there's a link that points to them. Then it will play a transition and display the correct one. All right. And to create a link, you just standard hashtag about that points to this. I'll show you this live if I can. Yeah, so there it is. This is the About button, and when I click on it, it goes to a page. And the page has a header, it has content, and what's interesting is when you press this, it is equivalent to that. Okay, so the back button on the browser, so it plays with the history, so it's very nice. Even though you're still in the same document, it recorded that as a separate page, and you can just go back. All right, so next thing. I will show you a case study of the OSCON website. So OSCON is a conference in the United States, in Portland. It's an annual event, and they have a website that's not really usable on a mobile device, and I will show you how to adapt it to the mobile. So this is the website. That was from the year where I presented there. That was in 2012. And this is the visible portion on a mobile phone. So let's not consider the side column. Let's consider the main content. You only see half. But the thing is, if you flip your phone, you still don't see the entire line. So you have to either zoom out or scroll horizontally. And the thing is, notice how the links are very close together. So you have the date, you have the time, you have the tags, mobile, you have my name, you have the title. So in order to click on something specific like my name, you already zoomed out, right? Because you need to be able to read, you know, and then with a magnifying glass. Then you have to pinch zoom again in order to be able to point to my name. So it's really hard to use that, but it's really easy to adapt to a mobile. There will be some sacrifices, of course. You have no choice. This is my proposed view for that same page, done entirely using jQuery mobile. Basically, it's a list with some separators. That's all I did. And here are the improvements I made. There is no zooming anymore because everything fits within the width of your page. There is a search box just below schedule and on top of Wednesday. You see filter items. If you click there, you can start typing, and it's going to dynamically filter out the list, and you will only see the relevant elements as you type. The entire block becomes clickable because I showed you the list before. The entire block is clickable, and then if you want to get more information about the speaker, you're going to have to click from there. But at least you're not, there's no competition between the tiny little links over there. There's less information to reduce clutter, so I removed the tags, I removed actually I didn't remove that much, just the tags and the description. The description will be on the next page. And the separators are just indicating which day it is. So once you click, you get to a description page with a back button to the schedule. You have my photo, you have title, name, company, date, time, room, accordion component in order to hide some information some more, so that this is actually a personal choice. You can just put it sequentially, but I put it this way because I wanted people to see in advance before scrolling all the information that will be available on this page. Because if they don't scroll all the way down, they may not see the feedback form, they won't leave any feedback for the speaker, and that makes us sad. And you have a footer, which is always visible, with all the share buttons. So as a speaker, I also want to announce the news when I get accepted to a conference. I want to share it on Facebook, Twitter. I want to email it to someone. This is also very useful for organizers because it allows us to, well, the excitement of the speakers basically promotes the event. So the improvements is that, once again, no zooming required, the collapsible blocks, share buttons. I will go to the next page here, if I can figure it out. Oh, wait. Doesn't work as I expected. All right. So there is, as you see, you can filter the items. So if I type, sorry, it's very hard to type and not see what you're typing. jQuery. Yeah, there you are. So as I filter, it dynamically removes all the elements that are not relevant, and it keeps the separator on top, which is very, very neat because it has some information, it has some meaning, so you don't want to lose that context when you search. So it's very simple. And then I can click on that, and I get the description here. I can close it. I have feedback. If I switch to description, feedback is going to be collapsed. And the cool thing is that you have various components, such as forms, with all the different widgets inside, and you can submit by going to a new page, or you can also submit via Ajax and just display a little dialog that says feedback has been received. Thank you very much. And that doesn't require much code. So if you go download it from GitHub, it's really only a few lines of code. It's basically you write HTML and you create data roles with some other metadata, and the jQuery mobile framework takes care of the rest. I won't show you all the features because there's a lot of them. You can, when you check the documentation, there's interactive examples for pretty much anything. I think it's one of the best documentation for an open source project that I've ever read, personally. I'll show you some best practices because very quickly you will run into trouble with mobile. For example, when you have long lists, so a lot of presentations, say OSCON had, I don't know, at least 150 presentations. So it can create a very long list. So what you can do is splitting them into groups. For example, if you have a few groups, like by day, so you have a 3-day conference, you can at least split it into 3 groups and put that just beneath your header. So you put Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. If you have, that's if you have few categories. If you want to split into more groups, then that won't do because you have limited space. You can create intermediate lists. So that's an interesting trick. Basically create one page with the categories, and then when you click on the category, in this case, say we click on business track and you have 15 presentations there, it will create it will show you another page where you have all of the business talks. 15 elements only. So that can be very useful. When you have navigation, it can quickly become complex because you click and never get to where you want. So use lists wherever appropriate. So for example, if I have multiple items, I just stack them this way. Why would I use a list for navigation? Because when items are aligned, text is aligned to the left on the mobile, you couldn't possibly align it all horizontally. But if it's all left aligned, vertical, it's easy to read because the way our eye focuses on the first letter. So it's very easy to find what we want. I suggest to keep your navigation narrow and shallow. So what it means is that you don't display too many links at once. You don't want 200 links. But you also don't want the person to click too many times in order to get to where they want. And that's just standard for any website, not just mobile. But it's particularly hard on the mobile because you have so little space, And then you also have latency because when you click, you go to the next page and you're not always using Wi-Fi. So it can be very slow. And you also should always describe your links. My associate just last week found an interesting website where not only if you just use icons that are meaningless, that's okay. At some point you can associate an icon to an idea, so you click through them once. But that was really special. The website had only numbers as links, so it's like link 1, 2, 3. So it said 1, 2, 3. And what does that mean? I don't know. If you're on a desktop, you can roll over and guess from the status bar where it's going to lead. But if you're on a mobile, you don't have that luxury. So you just have to click on all of them and remember, okay, so 1, that's the presentations of that conference. 2 is the list of speakers. It's really crazy. So that's extreme. But even if you use icons, they might not mean to your users what you want them to mean. So a good thing is always accompany them with text. You can just use text or a combination of the two. So that people can, once they figure out what everything is, they can then associate a star to favorites, and then next time they can find it much more quickly with their eyes. You will run into performance problems. So I suggest that you keep your transitions to a minimum. That's also for usability issues, for usability concerns. But some people have slow devices. They say latest devices are really fast, but here I have a 1-year-old phone and it occasionally lags when there's heavy transitions because I'm doing lots of things in the background. So when there's a transition during that time, if it takes a lot of many seconds to catch up, then during that time I'm idle, I can do nothing. And you lose a lot of time because of that. Even if the transition goes smoothly, it's fancy, but at some point you're just losing precious time because it's all flying everywhere. And you have to consider the refresh rate of magnetic ink. Magnetic ink doesn't refresh at 60 frames per second. It's very slow. It's going to be very choppy. You can try. I haven't tried, but I would think that it's very choppy because of how much time it takes just to turn the page on a book. There's also download speeds. Now, the concept of round trip is that there's an overhead when you go to the server to download something. So here it's just a proportion of the yellow is the part where you actually download, the time that it takes you to download the content that you are getting for a 2.1 kilobyte page. And the red is the overhead of the round trip, so the time to go to the server and get a response back. So this is an on average mobile device. And if you have two of those pages, then you have very little download, but a lot of round trips. And it's going to take you about 2 seconds, I think, to get that. Well, it can take multiple seconds. So what you can do is combine your pages into multi-page documents, much as I showed you in the beginning, where you had the About page, which is in the same document. So you just use different containers, combine it this way. And when you combine, what happens is that it's the same round trip, but it's the yellow are combined. And it's 3.6, which is less than the sum of the other two, because you also save on the overhead of everything that's outside of your body tag. So you really save heavily on that. So there's no more redundance. But you shouldn't overuse that. You shouldn't go the other extreme and load your entire website. For example, you have 100 presentations with all of their descriptions. You may not want to load all of that at once, because then you would be waiting for a very long time, and eventually you don't get the information you want, or you just want to check say the address of the conference, and then you leave the website, and you would have waited all this time for nothing, which would be similar to downloading an application. The other thing that you can combine is you can combine images into what is called Sprite Maps. I will show you visually what it means if you're not familiar with the topic. Sprite Maps is when you combine multiple small images into one image. And you use a little CSS trick in order to create a mask or like a window. So say you have all of these icons, and with CSS you say that the background image of all the icons is going to be the entire PNG of icons, and it's going to be 18 pixels wide by 18 pixels high. And if it's a back button, then you will basically you will reposition the background underneath the window you created, and you will only reveal a portion of the image. So that's a neat CSS trick. jQuery mobile has 22 icons by default. And can anyone guess how many kilobytes it is combined? So 18 by 18 pixels times 22, how many kilobytes? 5? 2? 1.7 kilobytes. So why on earth would you take a 1.7 kilobytes and split it into 22 and waste all of those seconds in overhead, round trip time, when you can just combine them into one? And people use that often also when they have, for all of their design items, because it loads much faster. And also when you have rollover effects, they're much smoother, unless you use some JavaScript tricks to preload images. But this is much simpler because it's just pure CSS. So it's a nice trick you want to look at. Another thing you can do is link your jQuery, JavaScript and CSS files to the jQuery site, or rather pull them from the jQuery site directly. So instead of storing them locally, you will go to code.jquery.com and load them from here. Why would you do that? Because consider this. You have a user that goes to some other website. And that other website uses the jQuery mobile framework, the same version. Once they go to that website, the jQuery will be cached because it's from jQuery.com. It will be cached. And then when they go to your website, it's going to try to access the exact same resource. Not your local copy, but the exact same resource. It will be already loaded in the cache. And so your own website will, as a result, benefit from that cache and will load much faster. So the only thing that will really load is your own images and your own HTML. So So you will have to load that again. Some interesting tools that you can use. You have a UI builder. So the interface changed slightly. It's much more advanced now. So you can prototype your UI using this tool in the browser. So you just drag your lists and buttons and see how it's going to look like. And you just export the HTML and you continue tweaking that. Another tool you can use, the theme roller. So if you don't like to mess with CSS and you don't know the hexadecimal values for colors like I do, you can just go there and you mess with that. You pick different colors and you say that you want how you want to basically style all of your elements. Okay, it's not as complete as you would do on your own, but it does help you to at least match the color palette of your corporate identity. So if your colors are blue and orange, then you can put that in there, and it will work very nicely. By default, it comes with 4 swatches, but you can customize these, create your own icons as well. Many things you can do. PhoneGap, I don't know if it's still actual. So basically, it will convert your mobile UI to a native app. Doesn't offer you any additional capabilities, but you can, if you really want to encapsulate it and have your own icon on the person's desktop, then you can do that. And it supports. At the time I wrote these slides a year ago, it was supported 7 platforms, and it saves you even more money. So if you have a website, you can just port it to mobile and then have it tweaked to your liking. And that's pretty much it. I guess I'm right on time. So there's multiple resources. I will post all of this on my Twitter account soon. So I will upload that and just give you a link to that and GitHub. So I have business cards here. I have some little guidelines for writing unit tests unrelated to this talk, but I have them, so enjoy. Thank you.